Hey guys, what's up? Sander here. And today I'll be testing some of the cleanest, some of the most detailed sounding IEMs I've tried as of late. These are called Hiby Crystal 6, a very fitting name if you ask me. They are going for $459 and there is a lot to cover about them, so let's get it started. Crystal 6 are by far the nicest looking all-armature IEMs I've held in my hands. They remind me quite a lot about my 4-way custom IEMs that I used to wear some time ago. They have the same custom-like look as their ear molds seems to be handcrafted. Each and every Crystal 6 unit has a different look thanks to an unique texture on the dyed wooden panels. They have a smoky blue, semi-transparent shell and you can actually see the custom crossover, all those 6 balanced armature drivers, and its 4-way board design, which is kind of cool if you ask me. They have a slightly bigger shell to my daily drivers, but thanks to their shape and slippery body, I find them comfortable long term. The outer nozzle is having a diameter of 5.7 mm and a depth of 6 mm, meaning that you can use your growing ear tip collection no problem. As for the tech inside them, as its name suggests, Crystal 6 houses 6 balanced armature drivers per side. Those aren't off-the-shelf drivers, as some of them are custom designed for the Crystal 6 alone. A giant armature is all about that bass, 2 for its mid-range, 1 for its treble and another 2 for its top octave. A custom 4-way crossover with high-end Panasonic capacitors was developed, and 4 independent tubes will be carrying acoustic waves into your ear canal. The cables themselves are quite special, especially the 4.4 balanced one that uses OCC pure copper conductors for the best results. This single-ended cable uses less impressive silver-plated oxygen-free copper conductors. Those are also good, but for an all-balanced armature IEM, pure copper works better. Crystal 6 are also quite sensitive to source noise, so be sure to use a clearer output for the best results. That is everything you need to know about them, so I'll just stop here and I'll start hitting some eardrums. As for their sound signature, Hiby weren't joking at all naming them Crystal 6, as the first thing that came into my mind is that how crystal clear they sounded, how detailed, how transparent, how airy they sounded with everything basically. There is just an overflow of micro details in your music coming from everywhere. They appeared as super technical sounding in every meaning of the word. They were rendering also my music with a laser-like precision, also while sounding super fast. They were also quite merciless with less impressive recordings. Of course, mastering errors have nowhere to hide. All the bad, all the good cannot be hidden from this IEM. All the background noises will be moved to the foreground, so just prepare to hear everything from your music. I'm really glad that Hiby used a much bigger driver for its bass delivery, as usually all armature IEMs aren't that impressive when it comes to sub-bass delivery. So I don't find it lacking at all in the sub-bass. There is presence, there is a rumble. It's better than I was expecting. It's definitely a little nicer sounding in the bass compared to the FiiO FA9, to the Mesa Penta. There is definitely a little bit more rumble down low. There is also a decent impact to be felt. Their frequency response also felt somewhat pretty much complete to me actually. So there is quantity, there is cleanness in the bass, there is a natural mid-range, more like neutral mid-range, let's say so, without going overboard to the sweet and syrupy side. The trebles also felt extremely extended. Even past top octave, there is definitely a lot of information that is making them appear as super transparent and clean sounding. The imaging and layering were better compared to my daily drivers. There were bigger void spaces between the notes, and while the soundstage wasn't exactly wider or taller, their depth was in another league altogether, that is for sure. As for power requirements, at 107 dB per 1 mW of power, Crystal 6 is approaching some of the most sensitive IEMs that I have at my disposal. So they are not exactly power hungry, but they will definitely sound better out of dedicated audio sources, be them portable or not. Small Bluetooth dongles worked pretty nicely with them. USB dongles worked nicer, I think. Portable DAC amps and of course portable digital audio players sounded absolutely the best with them. And you don't really need some high-end portable DAP, you don't need an expensive desktop setup to enjoy Crystal 6 at their maximum. I would personally stay away out of those THX achromatic audio amplifiers, out of those NFC amplifiers of topping. I think that they already have plenty of transparency and details, they don't need more than that. They actually need a little bit of soul, a little bit of mid-range presence, and you can solve that with some warmer sounding source. You can use an AKM based portable DAC. You can use some Class A amplifiers that will boost its mid-range and will tame its treble delivery a little bit. Going on to the Transient Response, they will immediately impress you right away with their super fast music reproduction, with their super fast decays. And it shouldn't be a surprise to anyone because basically all balanced armature IEMs are sounding pretty much like this. With memory foam ear tips that are already pre-installed and with bass enhancing ear tips that you can find in the package, you can certainly improve the bass slam. But in all fairness, if bass slam is very important to you, I would personally go with some hybrid IEMs that are doing that better. Still, there is plenty of impact to be found in here. They still sound pretty engaging, so always lifting my mood with electronica, with rock music, with funk music and so on. I'm really glad that Hiby went one step further and put a much bigger bass driver, making sure that they will not lack any bass information as it usually happens with all balanced armature IEMs. Some of the fastest tunes that I know of, electronica music and so on, was impressive to say the least, and they really reminded about the sound of well-driven planar magnetic headphones. The best of Hiby were up there with the best when it comes to detail retrieval, when it comes to speed. They need just a small bump in the bass slam department that can easily be achieved with a nicer DAP or maybe with a Class A amplifier, and you are ready to rock. As for the Soundstage, entry to mid-level IEMs that are not moving a lot of air down low in the bass territory
is a right solo.
Will never impress you with their soundstaging capabilities, mostly because the overall experience feels a little bit incomplete, like something is always missing from your music. Take as a very good example the sub-bass territory. When you take it out of the picture, there will be just less air traveling around, and of course that will directly impact the soundstaging capabilities in a very bad way. Luckily, Crystal 6 doesn't have those issues. It's very strong, very potent in the sub-bass territory, and of course 6 drivers per side will just decompress your music, will make it just airier, much better sounding in the soundstaging department. Of course, sitting just 1 or 2 millimeters away from your eardrums, you cannot expect a huge soundstage size that can go shoulder to shoulder with some open back planars. But when it comes to depth, when it comes to layering, when it comes to pinpoint imaging, they can easily rumble with the best headphones that I've tried. I must add that the last part is actually very impressive, as I didn't even need to close my eyes to hear the location of the notes in a crowded track. Their transparent nature made me walk easier around and just pick only the notes that I wanted to hear and ditch the others. As for detail retrieval, I have arrived at the culmination of what makes Crystal 6 an amazing IEM in the first place. I think that their name is fully justified, as they will always be unearthing fresh new details out of your music, so providing a higher degree of transparency while sounding crystal clear all the time. Of course, well-mastered music will start sounding legendary, and less impressive music will sound less interesting to a point of being bothersome in the long run. So, of course, the difference between good and bad mastered music is much bigger, much more obvious, as Crystal 6 isn't exactly a smooth, easy rider that is wiping clean some details and nuances from your music, be them good or be them bad. This is pretty much the most impressive part about the Crystal 6, and if you are hunting for the last drop of information, for the last drop of detail, I think that I found your magnifying glass for your music. Now, as of right now, from my IEM collection, only FiiO FA9 can stand a chance versus them, as everything else that I have at my disposal isn't that impressive in this department alone. Moving on to the frequency response, they have a close to perfect bass performance. There are plenty of layers and sub-layers of bass. It's more like a high quality type of bass that I think delivers on the quantity as well. So it isn't really elevated at all. I find it just right, so it's just neutral in my opinion. You should also know that a balanced armature type of bass is slightly different to the dynamic only driver bass. While the speed is just right, decay is just perfect, there is plenty of air traveling down low. You can feel the added weight, you can feel the air mass traveling around. It isn't really the punchiest and the naughtiest type of bass. That is basically the only downside of the balanced armature IEMs, and that is the sole reason hybrid IEMs came to be and were invented in the first place. Mid-range performance is pretty much in line with the bass, so I don't find it dry, boring or lifeless sounding. I think that vocal performance is actually pretty good. You can feel the added weight of the male voices, you can feel a little bit of sweetness of the female voices. I find it's mid-range mostly linear sounding, so if you are searching for a silky smooth, warm or smooth mid-range, you will not find that in here, so that is important to say. But with all that said, you can boost its tonality, you can boost its tone a little bit if you want with a mild EQ. So somewhere between 600 Hz and 2 kHz you can add somewhere around 2 to 4 dB for a heavier tone, or you can use some warmer sounding equipment if you want. I don't have a single clue how their entry-level or mid-level stuff is sounding, but boy, Crystal 6 knows some very cool moves when it comes to treble delivery. So it's very impressive in terms of texture, detail, transparency, extension, you name it. My measuring rig can measure up to 22 kHz, so past our hearing abilities, and there was plenty of driver movement even in that region, so very impressive to say the least. I've heard just a crystal clear top octave with manageable peaks. It isn't bright nor harsh sounding, just a perfect treble rendition that is super extended to the subsonic levels. I have also measured their performance using a mini DSP ear system, so everything from frequency response, total harmonic distortion, spectral decay, waterfall, and spectrogram. But since I don't like long and boring reviews, I strongly recommend checking out my full analysis that I put in the link below. I've also compared them with its direct competitor, FiiO FA9, that also has 6 drivers, also a full balanced armature IEM, and also it costs pretty much the same. For that, please check out my written review that I put below, or somewhere around here. As for the conclusions, Hiby put themselves on the map of high-performance, affordable IEMs that can rumble with some of the best units that I tried so far. Crystal 6 actually felt like some proper flagships, even after first seconds of press and play. Their technicalities just stood out immediately, their detail of retrieval was second to none. Their speed was spectacular, but the biggest surprise for me was experiencing that impressive imaging, depth and layering. At $459 there is very little to nitpick about, and I'm happy to recommend them as an amazing pair of IEMs. Okay guys, I hope you enjoyed my review. My full in-depth review is waiting on my website. In case you want to support this channel, please subscribe to it. And as usual, listen to my music, be positive, and I'll see you next time. Cheers, bye bye.